we have power. And that's what we're going to be exploring in this conversation. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to our MC for today, Ms. Shamba. She was one of our wonderful ambassadors last year. She and her team, they actually took home the gold. They took home, as they say, the bag. They were the winners of our Venture Capital STEM Bootcamp. She's also a published author, and she just started her first year at university among many accomplishments. So Shamba, I welcome you to the stage, and the floor is yours. If you do have any questions along the way, make sure that you post them. You also have your electronic hands. You can raise them. We do want this to be a very close, interactive session. So if there's any questions, again, make sure that you post them and we'll be getting to them. So Shamba.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I am Chambobalia. As Ms. Tina had said, I am a Heritage STEM Camps ambassador, and I will be the host for today's session. So we're going to start with Mr. Carlos. So one thing about Mr. Carlos is that he provides business analytics, IT auditing, SAP, project management services to businesses and municipalities, as well as higher education. And receiving his bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt University, this Memphis native also serves as Chief Technology Officer for one of the largest HBCUs in the country. Carlos is also a two-time PhD recipient, receiving his doctoral degrees from Tennessee State University and Louisiana State University in public administration and business administration within information systems and decision sciences, respectively. And our next speaker is Ms. Kutlwano Laka, who is the founder and CEO of K-Pane Group, which is a parent company for Kutlwin Scent, which is a skincare brand, and Oreo Scrunchies, which is a hair accessories brand. And she is currently studying towards a Bachelor of Accounting degree at the University of Johannesburg. And lastly, our third speaker is Mr. Ed Dudley. And Mr. Ed Dudley is founder and managing partner of L2P Financial Partners at a financial services firm. He is also a co-founder of Shining Light in Darkness, which is a nonprofit, and he is also founder of We Are Connect Ed, and he is a professional networking and business consulting collaborator. And surprisingly, with over 20 years of financial services experience, he has worked for some of the most largest financial services companies in the country in various positions, such as Regional Vice President for Evergreen Investments and Senior Vice President for both Wells Fargo Advisors and FSB Securities.
So basically, I started my business in 2020 during COVID. And I was in school, I was doing grade 10. And just to clarify with Miss Tina, I was 16 years old. So when I started my business, I didn't have any inspiration. Business was not even on my mind. I was just an academic nerd. I was always in my books until one day when a friend of mine introduced me to one of big businesses in the world, and was like, why don't you join this business? But then, according to my study schedule and how busy my life was in terms of my education, I couldn't venture into that specific business type. So I spoke to my parents, and my parents suggested that I rather sell cosmetics, which will be easier for me to work in my business and also do my schoolwork at the same time. So then I got a loan from my parents to start my business. I then started my business, my first business, which was Kutli Scent, selling perfumes and lotions, right? Those were my first two products. So basically, how I went about with the business, since I didn't have any business experience, was that I basically just started at school. I advertised my business to my peers, to my teachers, and I actually got some customers. People started buying my product, people started supporting me. I even made posters to post on Instagram and Facebook and other social media platforms. So as my business grew throughout the years, until last year in 2023, I found myself studying Bachelor of Accounting at the University of Johannesburg. And during one of the assignments in the modules, which is Commerce 100, we were told to start a business just for a few weeks and a few months in order to acquire some capital for our, in order to acquire registration fees to join the JSE challenge. So now I was partnered up with two of my classmates. And while we were doing this business, I noticed that there's some potential. Even though this business was just for a few months, I saw that I could go far with this. So once we were done with the JSC challenge and we didn't have to continue with the business, I grabbed it with both hands and I was like, I want to do something with this. Because we had distributed our profits and also paid the JSC challenge, I was able to take the business idea and continue with it after speaking to the classmates that I had, and they didn't have a problem with it. So I took the business and I continued with it, and now it has turned into Oriya Scrunchies, which is a hair accessories business where I just sell scrunchies to girls, especially on campus, students, women, anyone who'd like their hair accessories to match with their outfits. So that's how I found myself heading to businesses.
Assuming that it will expand and you'll be able to grow as a business and you can be able to internationalize it. So how will you ensure that your new associates or employees are competent for your business when your business expands after being so successful as a sole proprietor?
Okay, that's a good question. So the degree that I'm actually studying towards is the main purpose why I'm studying towards Bachelor of Accounting is because I want to acquire knowledge in terms of finances in order for me to be able to run my business successfully. So as the founder of my business, knowing that I am also learning towards acquiring skills that will be needed in my business, I'm going to ensure that my associates and employees acquire knowledge. Even if they start out with the basic degrees and masters or whatever that they come into the business with, while they're under my business or under my company, I'm going to ensure that they get some finance workshops, workshops on management, financial management, and teamwork as well. I can have some camps, some boot camps in my business where my employees will learn and acquire more skills because I believe in lifelong learning. The world is changing every single day. And as we can see, we're moving into the fourth industrial revolution. So I need to make sure that my employees and my associates, as well as myself, we are equipped with the skills that are needed to get us into the next industrial revolution and to keep us going for many years to come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Laka. It is all about levered learning and equipping yourself with skills. And now moving on, so Mr. Ed Dudley and Mr. Carlos Thomas, we actually hear that you are also business founders. So in your case, what inspired you to start a business and how did you cope with the arising challenges?
Ed, you go ahead and start.
I was going to say age before beauty, but we won't talk about that. And this Laka, if you can get me some scrunchies, you can tell I need some scrunchies.
In the
You
front.
definitely need
Front. First of all, I'm honored to be here, and especially with all these young leaders, and our future is looking amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of what I'm seeing. But for me, for the longest, I want to say at least 2 decades, I was an employee. And it was all about rising the ranks as an employee. And I'm led by my faith. I'm grounded by my faith. Everything that I am is based in my faith. And it got to a point where it's like, you should not be doing this for others. You need to be doing it for yourself. And that's when I launched my multiple things that I'm doing, led by faith. And, there's been some amazing days, and there've been some days that I always tell the joke that I tell people is before I started on this entrepreneur journey, I had hair. And as you can see, it will make you lose your hair real quick and get stressed out. And Carbels, please stop laughing at me. You've been laughing at me for a while. But it's amazing. It's an amazing journey. It's fun. I get to meet amazing people along this journey that are supportive. And that's what you need. It's all about supporting each other, no matter where you're starting out in your journey. I look at Miss Tina, amazing support. I'm going to be checking in with Mr. Carlos real soon, because as entrepreneurs, but more importantly, as people of color, Black, African, you name it, however you want to describe us, we have the collective power to shift this world.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple, to shift this world. And one of the last things, and I'll let Carlos talk, one of the things that I do personally, I surround myself with amazing women. If you look everywhere around me, I have amazing women around me. Why? Because I believe they are the future. If you look at startups,
Yes.
they are outperforming every other part. So, ladies, get ready, because you guys are going to rule for a long time.
Amen. Good morning,
I
everybody.
actually have a question for Mr. Edge.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I'd like to know how the transition was from being an employee to now being a founder and a CEO to being the boss. What are a few changes that you wanted to see in your business that you didn't see in the company that you were working for?
So
You know
I'll
what? Can I pause there for a second? Because that's such an amazing question. I think Carlos, let's get Carlos in, because I think it would be important for Carlos, since he has higher ed, being a business owner, being in IT, seeing the whole ecosystem. I would like for Carlos to answer that question too, but after we find out who you are.
Hey, everybody. Carlos, it is absolutely an honor and a pleasure to be here with you guys today. I echo Tina and Ed's sentiments. I started my business, quite frankly, as a midlife crisis that had been brewing for about 20 years, right? So I'm 54 years old. And when I started taking classes in the College of Business 20-something years ago, for my master's, it was a switch because I had been an educator and a social worker. And all of a sudden, I'm being exposed to a whole different realm. Finished my master's, went off into working in IT, and over a series of years, taught business in IT, and eventually got to the point where I said, I want to do something different. And so my wife said, hey, why don't you do the barbecue thing? And I said, that's beneath me. I'm Dr. Thomas. And she said, well, you can be an idiot or you can do what you love. And I thought to myself, my wife is always right. Even though I don't admit it initially, but she's always right. And I started conceptualizing how I could actually launch a barbecue business back in Louisiana. I was living in LA at the time, and we were transitioning back to Louisiana. Thinking about my background as a social worker and somebody who, I'm a technologist, but at my core, I am someone very much concerned about humanity, society, and particularly Black folks. And so I wanted to do something that I could make the world a little better, as well as, turn a profit and stay solvent. And so part of the thrust of that particular effort was to employ people who had been previously incarcerated. My wife is a former public defender, and so she knew that a lot of folks that would come out of jail did not have opportunities for employment. And so that was one of the main things that we did at the business. We employed brothers and sisters who had been previously incarcerated. It was a challenging time because we opened up 6 weeks before something called COVID hit. And if you remember, restaurants were shut down during COVID, right? And so it gave me an opportunity to utilize all that education I had to actually pivot and figure out how do we maintain some degree of solvency with the realities of COVID. And so what came out of that was I started shipping my food across the country. Started off with friends that I had from university and just growing up And then they told a friend, and they told a friend, and it kind of became a thing for about 6 months or so until we were able to open the store back up. We still shipped a little bit after that, but that gave me insight into a whole different revenue stream that I hadn't really thought about. Let me just say real quick before I pass it back that you know, I think it's going to be important for all of us to understand that the way that we as Black folks start and leverage our businesses and run our businesses and kind of mission our businesses may be a little different than other folks. We have a collective mindset very often, and there are models out there to run our businesses to the point where not just one person or a couple of people are maximizing all the profits, if there's more collectiveness and sharing. And I saw that actually in South Africa, in the village of Guguletu, where sisters were working collectively to create garments that they sold to tourists who came to the township. And so, not saying that you got to go out there and go broke trying to save everybody, but always think about how your organization can actually improve people's lots in life beyond just the paycheck. So I'll yield the floor and let you guys go back to the questions.
So
All right.
if we can go back, because I want to make sure you all are addressing the question that was posed on the table before, but I wanted to make sure, Mr. Carlos, that we heard from you. So Ed, you can kick off that question.
First of all, Mr. Carlos, you're talking about your wife calling you out a little bit. So
Yes.
the gentleman on this line, it's important who your mate is.
Yes, absolutely.
It's extremely important because they can either build you up or tear you down.
Yes.
Ladies, it's vitally important who your mate is because you have the unique ability to build them up. And I'm saying all this for a reason, because when I was leaving corporate America to do my own thing, I was frustrated because it wasn't moving like I wanted it to move. So one night I'm in bed with my wife and we're talking and I'm literally complaining. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go back to corporate America. I'm going to do this and that and stuff like that. And she looked at me and she said, so I married a quitter? I was like, oh, I said, wait a minute, what? And it hit me. I'm like, whoa. And we continue to have dialogue after that. And I was like, yeah, no, you didn't marry a quitter, but you just challenged my ego and my manhood. So I'm going to show you wrong. And that's how I continue to go on it. I mean, it has its peaks and valleys being out there. But it's been interesting. But more importantly, it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's one of everything that I do, I try to support us, uplift us, strengthen us, build us. And then more importantly, what I do on the other side is making sure that I foster meaningful connections. So I don't know everything. I don't know everybody. But if you hold on, in my Rolodex, I know people that help you, Chamba, that can help you, Carbell, that can help Miss Tina. And that's one of the main things I do. If I leave this earth tomorrow, I want to be able to say, you know, my legacy was being able to facilitate meaningful connections amongst us. That's one of my major goals in everything that I do.
Man. Yeah, I'll echo those sentiments about a good mate, right? Because likewise for the sisters, it's important that you have somebody who's going to support you and help you through the challenging times. And when I decided to close the business as a formal business and move more into, I guess, nonprofit effort with the business, you know, my wife was that support to help me, transition into that new modality, man. So, wow, that is so powerful, y'all.
Okay, so, but thank you for that. And shout out to women and shout out to supportive people. But I still want to go back to the question. because
What's the
it's
question,
important.
Tina? Because I meander in my mind. What's the
So
question?
I'm going to let the host pose the question.
All right.
Play actually put it in the, or actually, you know what? Even better, we can have Ms. Laka to repeat the question again, because it's such an important series of questions that we need to address. But I appreciate the comments.
Okay. Okay, so the full question was, how was your transition from being an employee to now being an owner and a founder of your own business? And what is it that you're doing differently in your business that you would have loved to see when you were an employee?
Oh, okay. So I answered the question. It was rough. It wasn't easy.
Mhm.
It was difficult because I was used to getting a steady paycheck with steady benefits and stuff like so. It was rough. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I came from some parents worked very hard. But what I wanted to do is I want to build something that focuses on a couple of things. So I'm in financial services. I wanted to provide literacy and financial education for individuals that looked like me, that thought like me, that were underserved. Because a lot of the larger institutions that are around here, if you don't have a certain amount of money, they don't want to work with you. I wanted to be able to work with somebody that says that, Ed, all I have is $10,000. Though that $10,000 is very meaningful to you. I don't care if you got $1 million. Now, $1 million is nice because it's going to make more money for me. But if you got $10,000 and I can help you turn that into $20,000 and $30,000, those are the things that drove me. It wasn't about the big paycheck anymore. It wasn't about the stock options. I wanted to do things a little different. And when I started the business, it was called L2P, and that was love to people, because I wanted to show you love. Because a lot of times there are people in business, especially in the financial industry, it's all about transactional services.
Right.
I wanted to build deep, meaningful relationships with people, because there's been studies that here in the United States that our people do not have enough wealth to retire. There is a huge, and I don't know if it's in Africa, Tina, Walmart. There's a huge retail store called Walmart. And at the front of the store,
They do have a partner. Walmart is not there, but they do have a partner.
So here in the States, here in the States, so they have a large institution called Walmart. And when you walk in the store, they have somebody that's called a greeter. And all they do is greet you when you come in, greet you when you leave. They're typically older people. My thought is, I do not want to have our older people be Walmart greeters, because typically they look like us. And it's like, I don't want that to happen. So my goal is, if I want to do things differently, is because I wanted to help my people more so than some of these other companies, which is about the bottom line. For me, it's not about the bottom line. It's just about helping as many people as I can.
Yeah, in answer that question, I found my skills that I cultivated as a social worker to be very helpful to address a lot of the HR issues that I dealt with. It was therapy sessions almost on a daily basis. So I'd show up at the store at 4:30 in the morning, getting food ready and getting things started, and somebody always had a problem, an issue. So in addition to actually putting the food on and getting it ready, we'd have therapy sessions. So that was interesting, and it helped a lot to address and kind of keep down issues within the organization. Much like it, I come from folks who are civil servants and educators, and country folks who work in farms. So I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship outside of what I had read during my graduate studies. So it was a learning process the entire time, and which was great because I love learning environments. I Ed, kind of alluded to it. There were times when I was writing payroll out of my personal checking account, right, instead of the company's payroll, because we didn't make any money that week, right? We had food that we prepped, and that went bad that we had to use as spoilage. But that's part of the journey. There was not a time I can't remember one day that when I would get up at 4 a.m, go to the restaurant, that I was not absolutely excited and elated. And here's the reason why. Because I had points of reference in my life where I was doing similar work for somebody else and making them rich and making sending their kids off to college. This was mine. Good, bad, and ugly. This was mine. And so that sort of freedom that comes with being your own boss was something that I highly relish. I also want to say, just want to take this time to say, look, business and transactions, y'all, you know, my motto is, as an entrepreneurship, you need to start early, start often, and you know that you're going to fail, and that you already have access to examples of entrepreneurship probably close around you. When we think about the women in our societies who have cleaned homes, who have washed clothes, those were entrepreneurs. Now, we don't look at it very often in the model way that we're taught about, you know, Dell or FedEx or whatever, but they were entrepreneurs. They can teach us a lot, right? So we should look close by for examples on how to actually address the challenges that come from being entrepreneurs, because, hey, our women have always kept food on the table somehow. So there's some good examples there for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Carlos. That was quite insightful. And on my side, what I learned from this session so far is that we should be able to find our meaningful connections so that we can grow as people and to be able to know what we want and to be able to have the boldness to change. Because, you know, if you stay in one position and get too comfortable, you're never going to progress and you'll remain stagnant. It doesn't matter in what field you are in. And so moving on, I have another question posed for all our speakers, right? So we know that due to the pandemic, stock markets were crashing, you know, production and revenue just dropped. So how did you find the momentum to continue, you know, and find different alternatives when global businesses were decreasing, or rather drastically dropping due to the pandemic?
Okay, yes. So with me, as I said, I started my business during the pandemic. So the thought of me taking a risk of starting a business during the pandemic was something that kept me going. Personally, I don't like debts, and although the people who funded my business were my parents, I wanted to pay them off as soon as possible. So I made sure that I do the necessary things. I did my research. I mostly did my research on Instagram, because on Instagram I see a lot of, especially American small businesses, right? It's been funded by women as well. So I saw how they started. Some of them had like some reels and videos explaining how they started their businesses, how you could market your business, and things like that. So I took the information that was posted on social media platforms, on YouTube, anything that I could read from an article. I took that research and tried to use it in my business, looking also at the environment that I am living in. So I made sure that my pricing of my products related to what was going on in the country and throughout the whole world, because economies were hit by the pandemic as well. It was not just people's businesses and restaurants or the walk-ins and stuff from what is this thing, pubs and bars, etc. But then um, people couldn't go out the way they used to. They couldn't do the things that they used to do. So I made sure that I implemented deliveries via Pepexi, because now, because of the pandemic, courier services were becoming more seen and were being used more often now. People were now following and adapting online shopping. So I had to make sure that my business becomes an online shop and then will transition into a physical shop later on. So I had to use what was happening in my environment, seeing that I started my business during that environment. So now it's a matter of how do I move from the environment of online shopping into physical and expanding my business. So that's basically what kept me going. the fact that I took a risk and now I need to go forward with it. And another thing that kept me going is that as soon as I started my business, after a few months and I saw the money coming in, I realized that I'm actually a control freak and I love being a boss. So there's no way I want to work under someone else. I don't see myself working under someone else. Although my degree or what I'm working towards needs me to do some articles for 3 years before I can get the title of a CASA, a chartered accountant. So I will do those 3 years just to get the experience and to get the title. But after that, I am definitely going to boss on and boss babe because I really don't see myself working under someone else. I feel like my boss and I are going to have a lot of arguments because I'm going to show him I'm going to show him or her a different approach to doing something and don't want me to do something in another way. So definitely the fact that I also want to work for my own self, want to be self-employed. I want to employ the youth as well because the current South African unemployment rate is skyrocketing by the minute. We're having an issue this side, so I'm trying to save South Africa by doesn't matter how many numbers of employees I end up getting, but one small business can go a long way.
Right. That's how we come up together. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, we had to think very, very critically about our operations. Food prices were fluctuating, and mostly up than down. And yet people's pocketbooks were shrinking, right? So it's a matter of thinking, okay, how can we stay in operation, at least pay our bills and move forward? And so when we reopened the restaurant after the closing, we decreased the number of items on our menu. We decreased the portion sizes. So things have shrunk here in America, portions and whatnot. And then we talked about what our operations look like and what really made sense. When were the times we really made money? And so we started only opening for lunch service. So we had a 4-hour window to make the money that we could between 10:30 and 2:30. And after that, it didn't make sense for us to stay open because we were servicing a very focused market there in close proximity. So it's really being responsive to the marketplace and being able to pivot as how we were able to keep the concern going as long as we did.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Carlos. Moving on to Mr. Ed Dudley.
Yeah, so that was a whole interesting period.
Mm-hmm.
I went from meeting people every day face to face to trying to embrace this virtual environment. And for a lot of people that are my age who I was working with, they were uncomfortable with it.
That's right.
Comfortable with sitting down and talking to somebody online about their finances and some of the other things. So initially it was rough. Trying to get people to sign up to Zoom. Like, what's Zoom? How do I get in? Is my speaker on? And is my mic on? But eventually, I want to say a few months after that, things started to shift. Everyone became comfortable, even more so. What happened is where I was just meeting people really in my own area to grow my business, expanded to meeting people all across the United States. Mm-hmm. Not just across the United States, I started meeting people globally. One of the things that I always do, if you spend any time with me, I talk in acronyms a lot. And one of the acronyms I use is getting air. Not the air that you breathe. The air is the acronym for advice, insight, and recommendations. When I'm talking to people, no matter where they are, if I can get those 3 things from them, it helped me grow my business. It more importantly helped me grow my relationships with other people. Because at the end of the day, people like talking. And if you can get them talking more than you're talking, most times they leave the conversation and they're like, oh, that was a great meeting with Ed or whomever. But my business did like this at first, but then started going back up because now I went from meeting people in a small pond to meeting people across an ocean. So it wasn't as bad for me. It took a small dip, but overall it was good. I think I met Miss Tina right before the pandemic, and she's introduced me a couple of people across the globe that I've had conversations with. You just have to learn how to pivot because as an entrepreneur, something's always going to come at you. Have a plan and be able to pivot quick. Sit there before, as you're thinking about your business, sit there like, what are some outside forces that could come and hit me that I'll have to pivot? Some of them you can't plan for.
Right.
But there's a lot that you can plan for. And what's my plan A? What's my plan B? What's my plan C? And if you don't know, call somebody.
Right.
Pick up the phone. Call somebody. I started talking about acronyms. Another acronym I use is I'm all about connecting people to pros. That doesn't stand for professionals. That stands for people, resources, and opportunities. If you pick up the phone and call Miss T, she's going to know people. She's going to know resources. She's going to have opportunities. Call Mr. Carlos. I guarantee he's going to be able to do the exact same thing. Constantly expand your network of people, not just in the industry that you want to work in, but all industries, especially in tech.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I echo those sentiments.
Absolutely. That was quite insightful. Thank you so much. So I wanted to mention that Ms. Laka mentioned that one of the core social impacts that she mentioned was that she wants to reduce the unemployment in South Africa as it is one of the sparse issues. So to your mind, what are one of the core social injustices or rather issues that you were focusing on reducing?
Yeah, so I think I spoke to this a little earlier. Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world. We put more people in jail per capita than any other place in the world, more than Brazil, more than South Africa. We like to incarcerate people. What does that do for someone who goes in at 18 and comes out at 25? Well, what it means is that their employment opportunities are limited. They've actually gone to college in prison, right? What skill sets do they have in order to be viable in the world, viable as a mate? Those are compounding issues that occur as a part of the policies that we have in our state. What do you do with that beautiful human resource that very often is untapped? Well, you need to try to provide opportunities and show people that you don't have to return to a life of crime to actually make it. And so and we still employ some of the folks when we have different events, but our effort has been to make sure that folks who have gone to prison or gone to jail and have that challenge associated with their day-to-day lives, they have an opportunity to make some money. And eventually, we've given equipment to folks to go and start their own business. So this whole thing about, just being one effort, no. It should be compounding. So what Ed's doing is he's turning people on to other folks so that they can eventually do their own thing. Tina too. I think it's important that I've had folks when I was working for an institution, I had folks who would be scared to tell me that they were leaving because they had another opportunity. And I tell them, that's great. I don't want you working here for the rest of your life. I want you to ascend and go other places. You may come back. And if you come back, you bring value because you have different experiences elsewhere. And so, just giving people opportunity and showing and modeling the behavior of entrepreneurship. When people see you show up regularly at 4:30 in the morning, that registers with them that here's someone that's consistent. This is what it takes to actually make it. Yeah, that's what you want to do. You want to model the behavior and give people opportunities when you are available to do so.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Carlos.
Pleasure.
Any word from Mr. Ed?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we run an NGO called Shining Light in Darkness. And then NGO focuses on gender-based violence. During the pandemic, gender-based violence skyrocketed because a lot of individuals were trapped with their perpetrators. So one of the things that we do is we focus on providing support for these individuals, whether it's through support groups, what maybe someone's escaping. We provide emergency shelter. We provide what we call our break free bags, which are essentials filled with products that you will need, brush, comb, lotion, things like that. But one of the most important things that we provide free therapy. We provide free therapy for not just the victim, but maybe the children experienced it. Provide therapy for the children. So that's a big focus of my wife and I with our nonprofit. And that is our servitude. That's how we give back. That's ministry for us, because it's not just an issue in the United States. It's a huge issue globally. There's a big issue in South Africa with gender-based violence. And our goal is we want to see a world free from gender-based violence. We know it's not going to happen in our lifetime, but we're going to do our little part over here in North Carolina to put a dent in it. So that's our social issue that we're working on, that we're passionate about. When I get calls from individuals that are saying thank you or saying help, when I know that we can put a mother up and a child up into emergency shelter, provide Pampers or diapers for that child and food, because put them in a safe situation. Or we had a case where we had to ship somebody out of our state to another state to safety. We're going to do our part for that social issue, because that social issue is a pandemic. And we need everyone standing up on that side to help. And men, if you're on the line, it's about healthy relationships. It's about consent. Young ladies, understand healthy relationships, understand consent. If you see red signs, walk away real fast. Real fast, because it's important. I'll get on my soapbox talking about that. So, but that's what we're doing from a social issue.
It's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have
Thank
a
you very
question
much.
for Mr. Carlos.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned that how you are giving back to the community is through employing former convicts, right? So what I wanted to ask is, how did the community react or respond to the fact that you're giving help to people who might have stepped on their toes or stepped on the toes of their loved ones that resulted in them ending up in prison?
So it's as gregarious as I am, I don't like tooting my horn on certain things, right? So my academic accomplishments, professional financial accomplishments, and the good that I do in the community is not something that I trumpet to the rest of the folks. It has just so happened that the first person I hired had already, had been previously released. And so they knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who had been previously incarcerated, had some skill sets in food and beverage. And so, I didn't have to necessarily do that. When I was interviewed by magazines, I didn't make that pronouncement because I didn't want to put my folks on blast, right? That they had all been either in penitentiary or parish jail. It was more so an internal thing for me and my wife to actually just make a concerted effort. My wife is from the hood. Okay, I grew up middle class, school teachers. My wife comes from the hood. Okay, and so she knows the lay of the land, which makes her that much more adamant to help. Okay, because we're talking about people she grew up with and her family, our family, I should say. And so it's not something that I broadcast because, I think people should be doing stuff because it's the right thing to do, and necessarily to get shine. So sorry about that. That's the truth, though.
Hey, Carlos.
Yeah.
Carlos, if you're in distress and you need help since you grew up from the hood, just put your hand up and let us know. We'll see help.
Shout if you need
No.
help.
No, and I was Carlton from Fresh Prince. I didn't grow up in the hood. She did.
The question is, can you do the Carlton dance?
Oh, oh yeah, all day long. But I did get my pass. When I married my wife, I got my pass. So
There you go. There you
I'm
go.
good. I'm good.
So
All
a
right.
question to Mr. Ed. Sorry. A
No, keep
question to
going.
Mr. Ed. When are you opening a branch or thinking of expanding your gender-based violence organization to South Africa or all around the world, actually, not only
So,
South Africa?
So, you know, our first step is solidify the organization here, but we do every year, we have a global call with another friend of mine that lives in South Africa. And we've had for the last 3 years, we've had a call that included individuals from South Africa, just talking about the issue. We've actually had someone ask that same question. I don't know. It's not out of the realm. South Africa is calling me. You know, too many people over there keep calling me. I'm looking forward to touching ground down in South Africa one day soon. And once we touch,
you won't want to come back in. I'm telling you.
Look. If certain things go on with our election, Carlos, I might be expediting that.
Hello.
But we're here, you know, even though we're based here in North Carolina, we've served people. The beauty is technology. We don't have to have just an office here or a physical office there. Somebody can pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to talk. I need help. And we can support them from afar. We may not be able to provide them the emergency shelter or some other thing, but we can help provide them the therapy. We can help provide them the support groups and things like that. So we don't have to be confined to just North Carolina and the States. So I've actually had individuals that from other master classes that we've had that reached out to us and had conversations with us. So my calendar, my time is always open to someone that needs support. And there's times that I'll pull my wife in. So she can talk to them, but we're always here, especially for our young people, always here. So if you know of anyone that's line that knows someone that's been through that and are looking for support, someone to talk to, we'll make ourselves available.
And let me just jump in really quickly, because Shining Light in Darkness has always been an organization which we support. So when even people reach out to me, actually, it is one of the first people that I will get in contact with, and Charmaine, which is, she is in South Africa, and they provide all sorts of just relevant information, advice, and willing to go to the nines for anyone. But before Shamba, before you jump back in, I do have a question. I know this time has gone by pretty quickly, and we were picking up the momentum, always on the back half of these calls, always. But one question that I have, in paying homage to our ancestors, and we also have our survey. So please, please feel free to click on the doc that you see that the team has sent out, that's in our chat. Provide us feedback. We don't have as many sessions that we're going to be doing this year because we're going to be transitioning. Similar to the prior years, we've had quite a few sessions. So we want to make sure that we're bringing you relevant information, but paying homage to our ancestors and their entrepreneurial spirit, how they started businesses. This is a call to action. For each one of you, what is going to be your call of action in staying true to the legacy that and the shoulders in which we have stood on, the doors that people have opened, the fight that they have fought for us to be in certain rooms, to be able to go to school, to be educated. What is your call to action, and what does that look like, and how can we within this call in the community join forces to be able to help?
Uh,
So
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Carl.
Ed.
Now, I
No one wants to go first.
that was a rich question, and
Very.
I would say perseverance. Perseverance
Mm,
is the most important thing. You know, we have a life of luxury, regardless of where we are, what we're doing. We have a life of luxury. A lot of my ancestors didn't have vehicles, took buses, or walked. They worked 12, 14 hours a day. So who am I to complain about an 8 hour day or 10 hour day and I'm driving in a car? Another thing that I'm doing, I consider myself a doorman. And what is a doorman? A doorman is somebody that opens doors.
There it
You know,
is.
a lot of times people look down on doormen, but doormen will open doors for opportunities for people to walk into other rooms. So I'm going to continue to be a doorman, open the door for anyone that I possibly can, especially if they look like us.
Right.
I'm going to open that door for you to walk through. I may not be able to even go through the door, but I'm going to make sure that you go through that.
mm,
That's it.
So, and that's the thing. And I'm thankful for my ancestors because I've sat in rooms and companies that I was the only Black person. I'm gonna give a shout out to a gentleman that's still alive. His name is LeCount Davis. He's here in the United States. He's the first African American to get a what's called the CFP designation, Certified Financial Planner, and he's still alive. So it's because of individuals like him that I'm able to do the things that I'm able to do, and I'm hoping that I'm inspiring someone in one way or another to go much further than I can. I love the African proverb: "You want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, go with people." And I want to bring as many people as I can with me. I might have some of you young people right here that I'm bringing with me on something I'm doing. You see, Miss Tina's doing it already, but
mhm.
I will just encourage all of you guys to be door openers for your colleagues, the ones that are with you, even some older adults. There might be some rooms that I can't walk in because I got bald head and gray hair. You might be able to open a door for me to talk to some people your age. So I'll go on and on, but I want to be um, um, mindful of time. So, Mr. Carlos.
Thanks, Ed, for those comments, bro. I started back last September. I started a lecture series every other Saturday at a local coffee shop on the 1619 project. And so every 2 weeks, we hold a lecture discussion, really, of different chapters in the 1619 project. And that's kind of harkening back to my roots as a professor and a teacher, but also
Carlos, I hate to jump in. We are over time, but
like,
if those that want to stay, we're probably going to elongate this out 10 more minutes because I think there's just a lot of meat to it. But and Carlos, can you explain what the 1619 project is for those who
sure.
may not?
The 1619 project was an American origin book that was published a couple of years ago that received a great deal of controversy from primarily white folks in America who felt very uncomfortable with thinking about the origins of our country, starting not in 1776 with the Declaration of Independence, but with the beginning of the Jamestown Project and the purchase of the first African slaves in Anglo America. Now, we had already had slavery down in Spanish Florida, but it starts there. And from there, Nicole Hannah-Jones, the author, the editor of the book, she brought in other scholars in different areas, and they cover themes. Now, you go through the history of the country, but it's different themes. Things like entertainment in America. What was the Black presence and the Black influence on entertainment? Sugar, which was a cash crop that made people enormously wealthy in the Americas. And so we talk about what they don't want us to talk about. That book has been outlawed in several states by state legislatures, which is, as a scholar and an academic, it's increasingly just sad to see that that's where we are, that we're not mature enough to actually handle discussions around that. So I'm knowing that my folks, I know what it's like for me when I became conscious. I think y'all call it woke now, but in the 80s when I became conscious, listening to hip hop and then going from there, that came about through two mechanisms. One, organically by listening to conscious music, but also in the classroom. So at Vanderbilt and Fisk University, I took classes on the Harlem Renaissance, African American history, African American politics, things of that nature. And I don't think that should just be a university. It needs to be at a ground level. So for me, I offer those lectures to the community at Black Owned Coffee Shop outside of Southern on Saturdays.
I love that.
Yeah, man. You know, I got that idea when I lived in LA from Simply Wholesome out there in Baldwin Hills, man. Just beautiful place.
I just took some notes on that, so I might be talking to you about that. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Last but not least,
So
we will end with you.
So my call to action is sharing. Let's share education. Let's share skills. Let's help one another. So with that being said, I actually have a WhatsApp group chat which is open to female entrepreneurs, mostly in South Africa because I only have contact with South Africans at the moment. But the group chat is basically about educating each other about entrepreneurship. So the most important thing about this group chat is participating. We need participation in the group chat. That's one thing that is one of our goals is that everyone should participate. Everyone should share something. We're not saying tell us your secrets to how your business is running, but let's share knowledge. Let's share those plugs. If you have a plug to how we can better market our businesses, that's what we're basically doing in the group chat. So I created the group chat for young women who are around me, who are also entrepreneurs, so that we can share skills and basically help each other grow in entrepreneurship. Because one thing society has done to females and women in general is that they've created a competition that we're supposed to be competing with one another. Instead, we're supposed to have a sisterhood. Because if we look back in the past, our grandmothers used to come together and discuss household issues. They used to come together and help each other. So why don't we also do the same thing? So that's what my call to action basically is. Let's help each other. Let's share. Let's climb let's climb this ladder together and secure the bag together. Because it doesn't make sense for you to secure the bag alone. And now you're in a restaurant alone. Where are the people you climbed the ladder with? Where are your connections? Where are the people you should be conversating with about where the country is going, how your businesses could work together to actually do better, make an impact in the world, etc. So yeah, let's share.
Love it.
You got a bright future, young lady.
Indeed. Indeed.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone once again for being part of our masterclass session. And it's closing. I hope that you have had a very insightful session and you heard quite a lot. And now I'm going to hand over to Miss Tina so that she can do an event announcement.
On March 8th, which is also Women's Day for Women's History Month. So Miss Alicia and Erica, we went to engineering school together in HBCU, North Carolina A&T State University. And Miss Beatra, I recently met her, I would say over the past 5 years, but she's one of the leading women in the government space. $1.5 billion in which she is managing, and it's the largest urban forestry budget in its history. So they're going to be on to talk about how they are driving change. I mean, and again, a former US Senator. So make sure that you come out. It is a continuation from the conversation that we're having today. Digging deep, make sure you bring your questions, make sure you show up, make sure you share. But we want to make sure that everybody is a part of how do we transform? This is a highly political, charged year, socioeconomic issues across the board. How are you using your voice? What are you listening to? Who are you connected to? More importantly, how are you driving an impactful change in the area in which you're in? We wish you all well. Have a wonderful Saturday. And we're going to conclude this with Bob Marley's song, Get Up, Stand Up. Show up for yourself and show up for your people. Take care.